Since 1861, it has stood here, in the center of the capital city, in the center of the state, as the center of government. The Ohio Statehouse, the People's House.
Well, this is a beautiful building. It's got great bones. This building has great bones and a wonderful history.
That history began in 1838 with a design contest. There were 3 winning plans, all showing balanced wings for the legislative chambers, as well as porticos and domes. In the end, each was declared acceptable, and construction began based on a composite design that incorporated the best features of all 3 plans. On the eve of our nation's Civil War, the imposing limestone structure that would be Ohio's seat of government was completed.
I mean, the exterior of the building is, I love the exterior of the building. I mean, it's got power, it's got a sense of stability and permanence that you would want to see in your government.
The new building would be the place where the man who would lead our nation through the Civil War learned of his election as president.
The ceremonial office for the governor, where Abraham Lincoln sat across the table from the governor of Ohio and was informed that the Electoral College had been certified by the House of Representatives. Lincoln finds out for sure that he's president.
And just over 4 years later, as the nation mourned his death, Abraham Lincoln returned to the Statehouse, where he lay in state in the Capitol Rotunda. Over 50,000 Ohioans came to pay their respects. As the world around it evolved, so did the Statehouse. Telephones made their debut in 1880. The entire building was wired for electricity in 1892. There were parking lots for cars and eventually an underground garage. Throughout its history, the Statehouse has been at the center of debates on all of the issues of the day that mattered to Ohioans and the men and women elected to serve them. The 10-acre Capitol Square has been a popular gathering space where people come to make their opinions known and have their voices heard. The years have been kind to the stately exterior of the Statehouse. Gray limestone seems to age well over time. The interior? That's another story entirely. The need for more offices, as well as meeting and workspace, resulted in decades of loosely planned design on the fly. The results?
It was something to behold. You'd walk into those artificially created offices and the ceilings would be low and the stairways would be cramped and crowded, and it was not very attractive.
My parents visited me. They said, "What are you doing? Can't they clean this place up?" We had pigeonhole offices, if we had any office at all.
At night, I'd be coming through the labyrinth or the maze to come through all of the various offices that they had kind of plugged into those open spaces.
Sitting in your office and having a piece of the ceiling fall on your head, or when a hearing room would be closed because a pipe had broken, and well, those were the kinds of things that happened pretty regularly.
When you go to work in the morning and you're in a dumpy, downtrodden-looking place and your office is 3 by 5, there's not a lot of incentive to stay there very long.
And there is the Statehouse Annex, the original home of the Ohio Supreme Court. Getting there from the Capitol posed a particular challenge.
Just as you cross through the atrium now, will you see that clay pigeon up above that? And it wasn't a clay pigeon when I came here. And my office was right, the first office as you went through that door. So I had to practice, and of course the atrium was not closed in, and so you would get this far, you would look up to be sure there weren't any pigeons there. If there were, you were very careful about you were going in that room.
Still, even though the Statehouse was falling into disrepair, it was still impressive to young lawmakers beginning their terms of office.
It was old. It was kind of dilapidated. But you know, I have to also tell you that I was so excited to be here that it didn't bother me in the least. It was fine.
To me, it looked like a great place when I first went there.
But eventually, 120 years of neglect and haphazard interior construction could no longer be ignored.
It was a fire trap, was what it was. We really found things like the cupola was in such a bad state from rust that probably by now it'd be coming down on top of us.
Disrepair is an understatement. Bill, this place was the pits. I mean, it was embarrassment to have the public come in here.
We didn't measure up to the building itself. The building was sort of whispering to us, "Help me, help me."
Help came from both sides of the aisle in support of the renovation.
There weren't any fierce battles about No, we shouldn't do it. I think there was bipartisan support.
In 1989, the restoration began. The plans were extensive. Not only would the rotunda, the legislative chambers, and offices be returned to their original grandeur, the State House would house a museum and other exhibits to bring Ohio's history to life for all Ohioans to see. The work was painstaking. Details of the building long boarded over or covered with paint were rediscovered. After 7 years, the Ohio State House was reborn. The reaction of everyone who experienced the new State House was unanimous.
It's absolutely delightful and beautiful. It's one of the finest buildings in the country. It is one of the finest state houses in the country. I've been to many of them. And not only, but the history of it, and the beauty of it.
And the ultimate decision to redo the annex and then build and attach the annex to the Capitol itself and make it a place, the People's Palace, is wonderful.
You never had a person say to you, I had out-of-town guests come into town and I brought them down to the State House in the old days. Never said that. That was a disgrace. Now, I get that about once a month. I'll run into somebody in the rotunda. Oh yeah, Senator, we had my aunt and uncle here from Albuquerque, and I brought them down to show them the State House on Sunday afternoon. You'll do that now because it's a neat place.
And now this has gotten better. You know, the advisory committee we have, the Capitol Square Advisory Committee we have, is doing an extraordinary job in making sure that we magnify the good qualities of this and make them even better.
In the restored beauty of the Senate and House chambers, Ohioans can see their government at work today. In the new museum, they can travel back into our state's rich history, learn how government works, elections are won, and read the timeless truths once spoken by presidents, philosophers, and leaders. Exhibits and interactive displays give young and old an opportunity to learn more about Ohio. And for one former governor, it's the best thing about the new State House.
I was just there, I think, about a month and a half ago, and I was just overwhelmed. I walked through there, and I just had a big smile on my face, and I just thought to myself, boy, this is really neat. And I made up my mind to bring my grandchildren down and show them around and study it, find out more about Ohio's history. There's a certain sense of when you get into that building, you can feel the history of Ohio today.
For office holders past and present, it is the history that the State House represents that matters as much as the beautiful appearance of all the public spaces.
The State House is a central point where people can come, and I hope we can expand the ability for them to learn about our very, very rich history.
The restoration of the Ohio State House represents an investment in our state's long and proud history. It is a place where issues are debated, laws made. It is an embodiment of the power of democracy. The Ohio State House, the People's House.
I hope the people of Ohio believe that this is a solid investment in what is the history and the tradition of the state of Ohio, because it's all in this building.
It is a validation for all the work of those who took the leadership to make sure that this wonderful building was restored to its original beauty.
I've never seen a more remarkable transformation of a building in my entire life. I mean, it is just, I think it is amazing. I mean, it's full of light, it's full of beauty.
This is a state capitol that really sings with history and pride for anyone from Ohio who spends time here.
Ohio is special. It always has been, and it's exciting that we have a facility that people can come, they respect it, they admire it. We just have to educate them better about what it's all about.
I would say it ought to be a requirement for graduation from high school, let's say, for anybody and everybody who wants a diploma from the state has to make a guided tour through the State House and in its present form and understand what's been done to it and why it's been done and what there is there that can teach us all about the experience of being an Ohioan.